Hello, everybody. My name's Nick, aka Glock in my Toyota, and I speedrun Super Monkey Ball. And today I wanted to take a deep dive into the game's most popular category, Story Mode All Levels, where you play all 100 levels of Story Mode, 10 worlds, 10 stages apiece. And it's definitely the flagship category in this game. And I want to do a deep dive into it because a comprehensive guide or, learning, tutorial, I guess, would be the proper way to put it, has not been made for this category in a long time. So I wanted to make a more comprehensive one that touches on beginner strats, mid-level strats, and also high-level strats for almost every stage. And since this is just going to be the first part of many, I just wanted to touch on some really beginner concepts and World 1. So, basically, if you're experienced already as a Monkey Ball speedrunner, a lot of what I'm saying is not going to be news. You might get a couple tidbits of new information that you've never actually heard before or never actually known before, but the first part of this video is going to be mostly explaining some of the more fundamental aspects of the game as a speedrunner, or as a speedrun, and as a puzzle platformer in general. And the first thing I think that's really important to know about is boosting. I think it's really the most fundamental thing that there is in this game, and it's going to be the cornerstone of basically all of your movement ability in this game. And basically what boosting is a way to get speed guaranteed off of the start of a level. And the way it works, when you're holding on the stick, you can see on my input viewer here, when you're holding on the stick in one of the four cardinal directions, north, east, south, and west, your acceleration is actually lower than if you're holding it in one of the diagonal notches, meaning when you have no speed whatsoever, you always want to be holding in a notch because you're going to speed up faster when you're in a notch than if you're not. And the difference is actually pretty staggering on a lot of stages. So if we just play simple, normally holding forward, if you look at the time we get when we finish, we'll see what we get just holding forward, just holding up on the stick. We get a 53.18, but if we do a quick upright and then align ourselves back in the middle just to do that quick boost and then go up, we get 53.40. So a third of a second just saved off of that. And that kind of parlays into another concept that's super important, which is wall boosting. And basically the best way to phrase that is that friction in this game slows you down immensely. So if you can be off the ground, that's generally going to help you build up speed. So you want to spend as much time in the air as possible if you can, because less friction equals more speed, generally. So the best way to get friction on a lot of these stages, or the best way to avoid getting friction, rather, on a lot of these stages is to hit the walls in a kind of pattern. So let's say we boost and then hit the left wall and then hit the right wall like that. Then we're getting 53.9. So that's like almost a second saved off of just holding up. Compare that to when we were just holding up. We're going to do a boost left, and then wall boost right, wall boost left, and then head towards the goal. And we always get a high 53 here instead. So combining the concepts of frame boosting, which is when you just... A frame boost, I'm probably going to use that phrase a lot going forward. But a frame boost is just one of these kind of boosts where you don't quite go to the wall. And wall boost is obviously when you boost all the way to the wall. So generally the optimal boosting pattern for these stages with really long platforms, just generally speaking, is one frame boost and then two wall boosts. That's going to be your ideal boosting for stages like Simple with a really long starting platform. Generally, frame boost into wall boost is what you're going to see on most stages where you're just going for pure speed. And it's also really important to know how to properly do a wall boost. Basically, the best way to do it is when you're coming into a wall, I'm holding up left into this wall, you usually want to start your upright input about when you're one tile away from the wall. If I start my upright here, we're going to get a nice little slope, nice little like lip off of that wall. And generally the idea is to get off the ground because that's what makes you avoid as much friction as possible, right? So we want to get kind of scooped off the ground like that. And you can get some really good boosting that way. If you are smacking into the wall, like let's say you're doing wall boost and you're getting things like that, or like that, oh, not like that actually. If you're getting like big smacks into the wall, like that means you're going up left or upright much too late into the wall. So you really want to kind of use the slope of the wall push your monkey along it, and you'll get really good wall boosts that way. And it works differently on these walls than on some of the other stages you'll see. Like, let's say we're in World 4 instead. Like, let's say we're on a stage, I don't know, like triangle holes. Why not? Just pick a random one. Because different worlds do have different walls. So in this world, they're much lower, but you still really want to use the slope of the wall along with your monkey. And that's going to help you get some really good boosting. Build up a lot of speed off of the very start of a stage. So that pretty much covers boosting and wall boosting, which are both super, super important. Really good to know how to boost properly. It's going to help you save a lot of time just here and there, nickeling and diming your way to more and more time save. Super duper important. And I think that the only other things that really need to be described in terms of really, really fundamental stuff in story mode, menuing is a really, really important one. So basically, story mode works differently from challenge mode in that when you pause, when you go to the pause menu in story mode or in practice, the practice mode and story mode have the same pause menu. When I go into the pause menu of story mode, we have the option to retry and to go back to the stage select. Stage select will bring you back, you know, to your little triangle with the 10 stages available to you, and retry will retry the stage. Interestingly enough, there's a little animation exploit where if I load into this stage normally just by holding the A button to speed up the animation, that's actually slower than if I enter the stage and then very quickly menu, I do start down A and press retry, because then I get this really fast load in and helps me start the stage much faster. It saves over a second just doing the quick pause retry, and if you practice it a lot, you can get them really fast like that. And it's going to help you get into the stages a lot faster. And the second part of menuing in story mode is that basically when you're playing through story mode in Super Monkey Ball 2, as soon as your monkey passes through the tape on any stage, that stage actually counts as complete. So we're done with simple. As soon as we hit the tape like that, we're done. So rather than waiting through any animations, like waiting for the stage to finish and you get your points and whatever, we just want to really quickly pause and menu up to stage select. And I'll actually show if we go into a, you know, if we were in an actual story mode setting. So let's just say we are. We will see, as soon as it loads here, it's just going to take a couple seconds, I'll be able to show that you can menu your way out of these laggy animations. Come on. So like I said, we're going to do a quick pause retry always, because that is much faster than actually waiting for the stage to load in. We're going to do these wall boosts I was talking about. We're going to come down here, pause as soon as you go through the goal tape, menu up A, so start up A to stage select, and simple counts as completed at that point. One really, really important thing to note is the dangers, the potential dangers of menuing that you have to look out for. The first of which is called a two-frame. That's what it's called in the speedrunning community. And basically what it means is if you do this pause menuing within the first 2 frames of you hitting the goal tape, so when you hit the goal tape and it breaks, there's, you know, the first frame of it being broken and the second frame of it being broken. If you menu on those, exit game functions the same as a stage select, and that's actually pretty funny that I did that, but the stage actually will not count as complete. So hollow doesn't count as complete in this situation. I'll show it again just for good measure. Like I said, we're going to do some good wall boosting here, some good frame boosting. Here we go. So you see the tape is broken on my screen. It's only been broken for 1 frame at this point. If we menu to the stage select, then rather than the stage being beaten, it's actually left incomplete. So you never want to do your pause menuing too early if you can avoid it. And if you do think you might be too early, like let's say I go down here and I play hollow as normal, like I said before. If we just get through here, and I'm like, oh, I think I might have gone too early, then you can always just press B and then press start again, and that'll stall out a couple frames, and then you're totally safe to go back to stage select, and it counts as completed. The other potential danger of menuing, which I mentioned, or which actually happened to me, so it's kind of a good segue, is if we're just playing through normal here, so let's just get through bumpy, just holding up, getting some bumps. If I miss menu, if I mess up my menuing and I hit exit game instead of stage select, it's actually going to waste some time on our speed run. Basically what we do here when we get to this save game data, this is super imperative, is you can actually press start from here and then go back to the stage select from here. It loses about 5 seconds each time you make that mistake, so it's not totally backbreaking, but they do start to add up, and that can be a really potentially dangerous thing that can happen to you when you're trying to menu properly. So that pretty much covers all of the really, really fundamental aspects of this game, barring one. I left out one really big one that needs some serious explanation. I'm just going to delete these real quick so I have them gone for when I move into the actual tutorial aspects of this, when I get into the run itself. But the other thing to mention in this game, for anybody who's never actually run into it or seen it, is that this game is completely non-deterministic. And basically what that means is that if you do the same thing on the same frame every time, the same thing will happen every time. 100 out of 100 times, if you do the same input on the same frame every single time, you'll get the same result. And while it sounds really fancy and, you know, mathematical, what it really means is you can basically, you know, cheat your way through some stages. Not really cheat, but it allows you to do some really, really crazy skips, and put together some really crazy combinations. So basically how this is done is that the game runs at 60 frames per second. So we're going to be looking at the timer up top where it says 60.00, and each frame that progresses downward, we're going to see that timer go down. So if we just watch it go down, you know, we have 91, 88, 83. You know, it's going to go like pretty much number by number. We're not going frame by frame on a lot of these pauses, but you get the idea here, is that it can go frame by frame. And the really important thing to note here is that not every, you know, frame actually exists. So you'll never see frames ending in 2, 4, 7, or 9. So like 38 and 36 exists, 35 exists, there's no 32. So 33 and 31 are back to back. That's kind of just a little thing to keep in mind. It won't make a huge difference, but it's important to bear in mind that frames will never end. You know, 0.31 exists and 0.33 exists, but 0.32 does not. But that's neither here nor there. The really important thing is being able to do pausing quickly and rapidly, because that allows you to do some crazy stuff. So we're going to be looking at the timer here. And by using the notches on the GameCube controller to get precise inputs, I'll just show what it looks like when we do a crazy skip. So like this one, we're looking for 3 specific frames. We're going to hit 58.38, and we're going to hold up right on our stick here until 0.66, and then we're going to hold up left on our stick until 0.16. And then if we do all of that correctly and then just hold upright and unpause the game, we're going to get smacked right into the goal by guillotine. And there is a ton of pause strats in this game that allow you to do really, really crazy skips. Some more ridiculous than others, but guillotine's a really good example of the kind of things we can do. We have this whole stage where we're supposed to go over these ramps and, you know, avoid this giant obstacle, but instead we just use the obstacle to get right in. So like I said, 38, you know, 66, and 16, completely non-deterministic. If I do the same thing every time, I get the same result every time. No randomness involved whatsoever. And pausing is definitely a skill that can and needs to be practiced. Basically, you have to slide from B to A really, or B to start really quickly to get frame by frame movements. So if you look at my input viewer down here, I'm going to be pausing on a certain frame. And let's say I want to move it forward 1 frame. So 1 frame from here would be 0.85. Basically what I have to do, I have my thumb positioned like this on the controller, where I have the base of my thumb on the B button and the tip of my thumb on the start button. And I slide from B to start very quickly. Or not really slide, but I kind of roll my thumb like that from B to start very quickly. And if you look at my input viewer, you can see, you know, the lack of time between these button presses. Like, they're going very quickly right next to one another. And it is frame perfect, but if you get a really good feel for it, it can absolutely be mastered by anybody. And it's important to mention that some people feel a lot more comfortable pausing with 2 fingers, like so. They put their pointer finger on the start button and their middle finger on the B button, and just rhythmically tap between B and start. So it's the same thing in function. Some people prefer to use 2 fingers. Some people prefer to use 1. I would recommend, you know, learning which one feels better for you, which one you're more confident and comfortable with, and then work from there. So that's really the gist of pausing. That kind of explains how it works and why it's so important to be good at and understand how it works. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the section of this video that's strictly fundamentals and things that you only need to know if you're coming into this game completely blind, or have never actually played it before in a speed game sense. Which means we can get into the actual tutorial aspect of this video, which is World 1. We're just going to be covering World 1 because I covered all those fundamentals, and I think each episode is going to be, 2 worlds. So I'm going to do this one that's fundamentals plus World 1, and the next one will be 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 6 and 7, and then probably 8 and 9, and then 10 will have its own video. But yeah, so we're just gonna get in here, and basically I'm going to be explaining all the stages in World 1 and the different levels of difficulty of each possible strat, which ones are fast, which ones are worth it, which ones are not worth it, depending on your skill level, and kind of give helpful tips on all of them as we go. Pretty simple stuff. So, speaking of simple stuff, we have simple, which it really, as I already explained in the wall boosting and frame boosting demo, that's really all there is to it, is proper boosting. The one thing to note, actually, which is kind of interesting, is that this stage will almost always be faster if you boost left first. I personally am somebody who feels comfortable boosting right first. Like, this is just what I would prefer to do based on comfort, is go right, left, right, and then head towards the goal. But on this stage, for some unknown reason, it is always faster to boost left, right, left. If we do that and just head towards the goal, that's really all there is to be said for simple. There's not much to really go into in depth on this stage, if you can imagine. It's pretty much straight line to the goal. Just boost it properly. Try and get your high 53s, maybe even a couple 54s if your boosting is really good. But yeah, anything above a 53.8 is pretty good. Like a 53.8, you're doing fine. And sometimes you'll boost really well and get a 54, and that always feels really good. So that takes us into Hollow, stage 2, which is kind of similar to simple, but it has a couple other things to note. Basically, the strat is we go up here, we bounce off of this curve, and head towards the goal. So the same thing here, we want to boost left, right, left. I don't think it makes as much of a difference on Hollow as it does on Simple, but I have heard that it is still faster to do left, right, left. So we're going to boost left, right, left, do our frame boost, wall boost, and then it's going to give us a little bounce off of this curve. We're just going to land right in to the goal. And the really important thing to note on this stage is that if you have a lot of speed coming off this ramp, you do need to either hold back or let go of your stick a little bit before you land, because the center landing point here is actually curved very slightly. So we want to land on the curved part, that way we stick directly to the ground. Sometimes, one of the things that you have to watch out for on this stage is if you boost really well and get a really big bounce here and just like hold forward, you'll get a bounce off of the ground rather than sticking to it. That's going to bounce you into the party ball, and that always feels really bad, because that's just losing a couple seconds to nothing, So always make sure you're doing a little bit of a back input to land on that curved part. Other than that, Hollow, pretty simple stage. Just same thing, frame boosting, wall boosting, get across the gap and land on that curved part, head straight into the goal. Should be getting a high 52 on that. Anything above a 52.6, you're looking pretty good. 52.6, I should say. Bumpy is the first stage in the run that is largely random in terms of the outcome it can give you, but there are ways that you can influence it to give you better outcomes than other runs. So basically, if you can imagine, frame boosting, wall boosting, same as usual. We're going to be looking to hit some of these bumps to give us lots of speed to get to the goal. That was actually a super good bumpy. If that happened in the run, I'd be super happy. But generally, the game plan here, the thing that you can do to influence it to make it better is when you come off of your last wall boost, rather than just landing in the middle like this, this is fine. It's not the end of the world, hitting in the middle there. But if you hit on the right side and actually land on this kind of wire that exists right here, like this part right here, you'll usually get a better bounce forward, which can let you get some better times. I just held forward there, so I ended up dying, but yeah, we're going to aim to hit this wire a little bit. It'll usually give you better bounces, but it's still, at its heart, a pretty random stage, which is unfortunate, obviously. We don't like stages that are largely random. Collision is the only thing in this game that can feel random sometimes, is the types of bounces you get off of stuff. But like here we get some pretty good bounces, and we're going to be able to bounce straight to the goal. So it's really a stage that takes a lot of feel. Not much to be said for it other than try and land on that right side or left side wire and get a big bounce towards the goal. Really being able to anticipate where your bounces are going to leave you, being able to anticipate aerial speed are the skills that are necessary for success on this stage. But yeah, it's definitely one that just comes with time. You can get anywhere from like a high 49 to a potentially a low 53 on that stage, but generally anything above a 50, like a high 51 or better, you're pretty happy with that. So that's just worth mentioning. Switches, stage 4, is one of the first stages that has legitimate variance between the strats that you can use for it. There's 2 major strats for this stage. So for the newer players, basically what you want to do is do a quick frame boost here, and then hook your way back to the button, or if you're not comfortable doing that, you can really just hold up into the button. It doesn't make a huge difference. And then do your wall boosts. Come up here, make sure you avoid this button, hook around this circle, and get in the green goal here for your 51. If you do the quick hook boost to this button, and then get good walls, you can get up to really good times on this stage, actually, just going blue goal. Not like that, unfortunately. But yeah, you just want to hook into that button real quick. It should activate most of the time, though sometimes buttons can troll you. And then just move to the blue goal like that. You should be getting a high 51 minimum, but 52s are ideal if you have really good boosting. The higher level strat for this stage that is on average much faster is the green goal fall, which is actually a pretty difficult trick to learn. So definitely beginners beware of green goal switches. It's probably a little bit harder than it looks. But you want to start it the same way by hooking into that button. And then when you come off of this second wall, what we're aiming to do here is hit the left side of this switch, and we're going to hit it pretty softly. So we're just going to kind of walk up into this. That was really slow, but just for getting a feel for how this trick works, that's not a bad way to go about doing it. Come into this button nice and slow, hit it on its left side, and then you're going to see this platform turn, and then all you have to do is fall into the goal. It is much harder than it sounds and much harder than it looks. It is unfortunate how easy this trick is to mess up, but you want to just fall down off the wall straight into the goal like that. And depending on how good your boosting is and how quickly you do this, like how fast your boosting is and how much time you don't waste hitting the button, you can get up to mid 53s on this. So it is a pretty significant, second to second and a half time save, depending on how good, like how properly you do it. But it's also a deceivingly difficult trick. So the thing to keep in mind if you're doing green goal switches is to hit the left side of the bottom switch and hit it nice and gently, because that'll make it easier for you to keep track of where the goal is and where you have to position yourself to fall into it. So definitely beginners, don't worry about green goal switches. No way, no how. It's not worth it for the second that it saves. Conveyors is just another boosting stage. World 1 has a lot of really simple stages. So conveyors, you just want to do your optimal frame boost, wall boost, wall boost. You can do left to right or right to left, whatever you prefer, as long as you're doing 1 frame and 2 walls, and you just want to shoot up the middle here. Should be getting a high 53 every time. Sometimes you get 54, and that's pretty cool. Kind of like simple in that regard. Floaters, guess what? It's another pretty simple boosting stage. But this one, it is important to mention, you pretty much have to start the stage with an upright boost. So do upright into the left wall, into the right wall. That's going to spit us out right here. And then basically we're just going to snake in between these squares as we go up the middle. We just snake here, snake here, snake here. Should get us a high 51 usually. Sometimes if your boosting's really good, you can get 52s on it. And that always feels really good. So yeah, we're just going to shoot up here. Bam, bam. Weave our way through and get to the goal. Nice and simple. Nothing to really overthink here. The only thing I would say to mid-level players looking to potentially up their game by a couple fractions of a second is when you come off of your wall boosting here, try and get a little bit of a clip off of that there. Not the actual floater itself, not the brown square itself, but off of the second edge here. I'll try and get one here. It's kind of hard when you're trying to do it. Like when you're actively trying to do it, it's much harder than when you're just doing it normally in a run. But we're looking to get a little bit of a clip off of that edge, because like I said before, friction slows you down. So being in the air is generally going to be really fast. There we go. That's a good example of a little clip here, and that'll almost always make you get a 52 as long as you clip it properly. Yeah, so that's just something that you can practice. If you're already an intermediate player looking to get your guaranteed 52 on floaters, you can try and practice that clip, but really just focus on the wall boosting. That's the main important thing on that stage. Floaters is another stage that has tons of variants, or not tons. It has 2 variant strats that I meant to say, and it has tons to talk about in terms of how to perform those strats. So basically, the beginner strat, if you're new to the game and you just want to get through a run playing it nice and safe, the beginner slopes skip. All you want to do is take your right frame boost, left wall boost, or the other way around if you're more comfortable. But I prefer right to left here. We're gonna boost off of here and boost off of here. We're just gonna shoot into the middle here. You don't have to do it as perfectly as I just did it. That was pretty good, but just shoot into the middle and then climb up those last 2 slopes. It's pretty forgiving, pretty easy. Just a nice way to kind of skip that first slope and then get moving right up the middle here. And we'll see what kind of time we get here. Yeah, 48 on that. Not terrible. Not terrible at all by any means. But the intermediate strat, if you want to get kind of juicy with it, just move back a little bit. Take a wall here, take a wall here, and then you can hit this guy and hit the back corner one here. And that'll let you fly straight into the goal. So basically we're backing up to build speed. Build speed. It doesn't really matter how you do it because you'll almost always have enough speed if you back up. And then just take your walls and get all the way up and land straight in the goal. And that gets you somewhere around a 51, I think it was. Let me try it one more time so we can see. We're going to back up, get our 2 walls, get a lot of speed, bounce off this guy, and go straight into the goal. That gets us 51, not bad. But the ideal way to do this stage, the best way to do this stage, and the most consistent way to do this stage is to start by actually holding directly left on your stick, as you can see on my input viewer here. We're going to hold hard left, only for a little bit, not all the way to the wall, but maybe, a quarter of the way to the wall. I usually switch pretty quickly, as you can see on my input viewer here. We're only holding it for, 0.2, 0.3 seconds max, just to get enough of a left input to have that be like the starting movement is holding hard left. And you basically want to roll your stick into the up left notch and then all the way to the up right notch. Basically, as you can see in my input viewer, I'm kind of rolling it all the way around so I get this first wall to be nice and heavy. I get lots of speed coming off of it because I'm just using it to roll all the way off. You just hold left and then roll all the way to up right, roll all the way to up left off of this wall. And if your wall boosting was proper and your left input was proper, you can get there in 1 cycle, no backing up necessary. It is shockingly consistent if you have a lot of practice with it. Your walls don't even have to be perfect. As long as your walls are decent, you should get there almost every time. And that's the fastest way to do the stage, is no backing up, just get it first cycle, feel good about yourself, and move on. Yeah, like that. Another thing that's important to mention, this is the first stage where it makes a really big difference, is air boosting. So like I was talking about before with boosting, how being in the diagonals increases your acceleration. That's also true in the air. So if you want to maximize your time spent in the air, the best way to do that is to snake back and forth, as they call it. Snaking from up left to up right to maintain as much aerial movement as possible. So I'll show here, if I don't snake at all here, I should probably actually hit the slope. That might be smart. But yeah, if I don't snake at all here, I'll end up, sometimes barely getting up, sometimes you'll pretty much land straight in the goal. It's usually going to get you like right there just to not snake at all, just to hold up. Yeah, we just kind of barely get up over the ledge, but if we snake off of that last ramp, you'll see we get way more aerial distance, and we're super, super comfortable getting in there. You can also snake in between the first and second ramps if you're really worried about how bad your wall boosting was. Do like a quick snake there, and then sometimes if you snake too hard, like you're just going to get bounced off the party ball. So don't go super ham on snaking unless you absolutely need to. But it is a good way to get a little bit of extra juice in the air if you don't think you're going to get there. So sometimes you got to snake your ass off, and sometimes you don't have to snake at all. It's just a way of kind of compensating for really good or really bad walls. But that's pretty much slopes. That's pretty much everything I can possibly say about this stage. Kind of exhausted it a little bit here. But those are the 3 main strats. You can just take your 1 bounce up to the middle and then take the last ramp, get your 48. Or you can back up and get the 2 walls, which makes it super easy, super guaranteed, but it's 2 seconds slower. Or you can learn the first cycle for 53, which is the dream. That is the dream. Sliders is another stage that has quite a bit of variance in how you can come at it, but I advise everybody to learn the skip on this stage. There are ways to kind of do pseudo skips where we kind of bounce on every single one of these. I don't think those are very consistent, despite how much people love to talk about how consistent they are. you know, like doing something like this and kind of bouncing down every one of these, you know, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not very comfortable with it, but I don't think it to be a very comfortable way of doing the stage, because even finishing like that is pretty sketchy sometimes. So I advise everybody to learn slider skip, which is basically the most consistent way to do it for newer players, and even, you know, a consistent way to get good times on it. This is the way I do it at a high level, is to boost left, go neutral for just a little bit, let go of my stick completely as I fall, and then right before I hit, I go upright, and that should put me on a path to land into this little curved edge here, pretty much every time. So we just upright here. Yeah, it puts us on a line to land in here every time. Oh, I just exited the game. Whoops. That's okay, because I can just retry and get right back in. So for newer players, the difference between, you know, whether you're a newer player or a more advanced player on this stage really is as simple as where you land in this little pipe. So if you're newer and you really just want to focus on learning the skip, try and get as much of this pipe as possible to get lots of air. That'll give you lots of time to be able to hit your adjustment into the goal. Getting as much air as possible is good. It gives you plenty of time to adjust and get there. It gives you plenty of vision. You know, we see the goal coming from a mile away. Lets us get a lot of possibility to hit it. And that's going to be quite a bit slower because you're getting so much more time in the air. But it is a good way to get consistent with just hitting the skip. So like if we do something like this, we're going to get like a mid 51, and that's perfectly fine. It's just a good way to learn how the skip works. But for people who already know how the skip works, and they if you want to know how to kind of optimize your time on this stage, you want to hit a little further to the right than we were there, and rather just kind of loop out of this right side of that. That way we're going to end up with much less air and much more speed going towards the goal. So rather than lipping out of like the really meaty part of the curve, we lip out of kind of the back half of the curve like that. Gives us a lot more speed heading towards the goal, and it'll almost always get a 51.9 or better. It gets 52s more often than not if you just practice it quite a bit. But yeah, we're going to go in here, come out of here with as low air as possible, and just try and hit the goal like that. So that's a good way to kind of optimize your time on sliders for people who already know how to do it and they're looking to spice it up a little bit, get a little better at it maybe. Spinning top is actually a pretty two-dimensional stage, despite how crazy it looks. All you want to do, you know, if you're a beginner coming into the run, all you want to do is do a quick upright, up left wall, upright wall, and you just want to come up here, sneak up this little curve, and then you want to come on the left side of the top here, because that's going to be the side that it's not facing every time. Unless your boosting is atrocious and you hit a wall really hard and lose a bunch of time, you'll almost always catch the good cycle here, which is just sneaking up here. You got all kinds of time to get up the ramps and sneak around the left side. The only other thing worth mentioning, you know, you can go right side too if that's more comfortable for you. Go right side, and just sneak around here. But the angles are a little weirder, so I find it a little more difficult to do right side. But whatever's comfortable for you, whatever gets you there, you should be able to get a 50 pretty consistently. High 49s are fine too. The other thing worth mentioning, of course, is the spinning top pause strat for, you know, intermediate, or I think this is actually not even intermediate. This is a trick pretty much reserved for high level players, but it's worth mentioning. There is a pausing set. If you pause on 66 up left, and then you go up right until 15, up left until 63 or 61. I'll do 61 because it's a little bit easier, and then up right and do a fancy little adjustment here that I totally messed up. You can completely skip the stage. It only saves a few seconds, and it's a really difficult adjustment, so it's absolutely not worth doing unless you're aiming for a really good time in the category, but it is doable. It gets a much faster time, but you lose time to pausing. That's another thing actually worth mentioning that I didn't mention when I was talking about pausing, is that while pause strats can get you a lot better times on the in-game timer, you do lose on average about a second to the pausing in general. So like if we could do this stage normally and get a 50, right? But instead I'm getting a 54 with 3 pauses, we're essentially getting a 51, you know, so it only really saves 1 second with average pausing. With good pausing, you can make that a little bit better. But yeah, it doesn't save as much time as it might look like it does. Definitely not worth learning unless you're going for a pretty obscene time in the category. And there are also some really wonky backups found by Haruki, Japanese player, that let you do pretty much the same idea but with more difficult adjustments and still make it happen. They're a little bit harder than the main set, the 66 set, but there are 65 sets. Definitely one worth, you know, keeping in mind if you get really, really good, but not even worth thinking about if you're not playing at a really, really high level. And then we have really the main demon of World 1, which is Curve Bridge. Certainly the most difficult casually, and also the most difficult in the speedrunning sense. There are 3 main ways of doing this stage, and it's going to be Slow Bridge, Curve Bridge first cycle, and of course Curve Bridge frames, infamous as they are. Still worth noting in this for anybody interested. I don't recommend them. I'll get to that in a minute. But the first and most beginner-friendly way to do the stage is Curve Bridge first cycle, or not Curve Bridge first cycle, Curve Bridge slow cycle. Sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background, by the way. They're barking like crazy. Basically, all you do here is just come along here and don't die. It's as simple as that. For the slow cycle, just don't die. You will always catch slow cycle if your movement is not complete and absolute filthy dumpster garbage, which it won't be. If you're not dying, you're going to be fine. So like here, we missed the first cycle. Gosh darn it. But that's okay, because we get slow cycle. The slow cycle is when the bridge comes up here at about 20. That's how you know you got the slow cycle. You'll always catch it as long as you don't die. You'll end up with an 18 or a 19 on the timer. You can optimize it a little bit, but slow cycle is just the safest way to get past Curve Bridge and keep your run alive out of World 1. Not really much to mention there. Just move, don't die, catch the second cycle, you'll be fine. Curve Bridge first cycle is actually a trick that I'm very bad at, so I might not even hit it once. Just a fair warning, because it is one of the more movement tight tricks in the game, but it's also really, really important to learn, because as we learn there, we get a 20 on the second cycle. Getting first cycle saves a full 10 seconds. So it's movement that is super important to learn, and it's also movement that will help you just get better at the game in general. Not for beginner players, absolutely not. This is for mid-level to high-level players, learning Curve Bridge first cycle. Basically what you want to do is get really good wall boosts. That's step 1, is really good frame boost, really good wall boosts to build as much speed off the start as possible. That was a pretty bad boost, but let's see what we can do. And then you really just have to hug the corners more than anything. You want to have good entry and exit angles here. Hug these corners as much as you can and try not to hold back ever. If you want to do adjusting to slow down your speed, try doing either neutral or hard left and right inputs. Like I had to hold back a little bit too much there, so I'm probably not going to get there. Even with the little clip at the end, we just barely miss it. So it is very movement precise. I'm not very good at it, like I said, fair warning. So just because I can't really hit it here isn't really a testament to me being bad. More so it is a testament to the game being hard. I promise, I'm not bad. I am pretty bad at this trick, but you get the idea. So you really just want to move here, hug these corners as much as you can. Always come into the turns from the far side of the bridge, like I'm coming from the right side here, and then end the turns on the inside and then switch. So we're going to switch over to the outside here, come to the inside, and then try and hug that corner as much as possible. The only thing worth mentioning on this that I haven't already is Curve Bridge clips, which are super difficult. And that's when you're going for first cycle, a lot of the time on the sharper angle ones, the second or the 2 last turns, like this one and the next one, you can try and really hook it on the inside and get a clip like that, because that will save a ton of time off of your turn. Like that is the best way to hug these corners as tightly as possible, is to get those clips on the last 2 turns. And getting a really good Curve Bridge clip on either the second to last or the last turn will almost always guarantee you first cycle if you had good movement. So worth learning for sure, but also blisteringly difficult. Be warned. I'm going to go for a pretty gritty clip on this last one. We'll see what we can pull off here. Not really, yeah, no clip there. And then we're going to try and cut this last one really tightly as well, like that. And I might get there in time. Yeah, okay, we got it pretty comfortably too. So there you go. Curve Bridge first cycle gets a 29. It's about 10 seconds faster than the slow cycle. Really important things to keep in mind, like I said before. Really good boosts, really good walls are super important here, because having a lot of speed coming in does go a long way. And then you really want to focus on hugging these corners, and on the last 2 turns, you want to try and get clips if you can. Really on the last one. The second to last one, just hug it really tightly. And then on the last one, I just completely messed up my movement there. And then on the last one, you're really looking for that juicy clip, to try and get as much speed as possible. And then the very ending as well, trying to get that little hook around the corner is really important. This is just a trick that, unfortunate as it is, when you feel like you're getting to the skill level where you might need to learn Curve Bridge first cycle for the 10-second time save, it is one that you're just going to have to grind out for, you know, a couple hours maybe, and just get really good at it, because that is pretty precise movement. To be able to get, you know, the clip if you need it, or to hook around the edge if you need it, is really, really difficult. Definitely don't sleep on curve bridge first cycle. It's pretty hard. And of course, I have to touch on it, not going to go too in depth, but curve bridge frames, there is a pause set for this stage. It is the longest pause set in the game. It's 7 or more frames depending on which set you hit. There are a lot of backups, but I'll show it and describe what it's doing, but this trick is only reserved for, you know, if you're going for basically a top 8 time in the category. If you've reached a point where you're really optimizing, there's a top runner, Peacher's Inc., who he was quoted as saying, you shouldn't go for curve bridge frames unless you absolutely need the time save from it to PB. Like, to get a new personal best, you need the time save from this, and the odds of that happening are really, really low. It's basically when you reach the absolute pinnacle of Monkey Ball 2 running, but it's still worth talking about, still worth showing at least, so you can see how, you know, swag this game can be at times. And I'll kind of recite the frames as I'm going for them. So the first one's 61. We want either 23 or 21 here. We're going to get 23. Now we're going to go for 06. Up right until 03. Up left until 31 or 30. We get 31, so we want 31 here. 21 here. 31 here. And that's curve bridge frames. It's pretty goofy, pretty silly. It gets a 47 in 7 pauses. So basically it's 10-second increments, right? So you have slow cycle, that's, you know, the slowest, and then fast cycle is 10 seconds faster than that, and then frames is about 10 seconds faster than that. Again, like I said, not even worth considering thinking about learning until you are, you know, a very, very accomplished Monkey Ball runner. Basically, I don't recommend them at all, but I can't make a tutorial and not mention them, right? And that is World 1. That's all of World 1. All 10 stages, you know, pretty simple. A lot of just boosting related stages. Boost properly, move properly, and you'll be totally fine. But yeah, that is part 1 of this tutorial, talking about some of the fundamentals of the game, as well as a brief overview of World 1. Look forward to the next couple parts of this tutorial coming out. I'm going to try and make, you know, 5 more episodes to cover the rest of story mode, and then hopefully by the end of it we'll have a nice comprehensive guide put together. So that's it from me for now. Enjoy Monkey Ball running, enjoy Monkey Ball watching, enjoy Monkey Ball. I love you all, and I will talk to you in part 2 of this tutorial coming later. Peace.